When it comes to size, this building, considered to be the tallest human structure on the planet, is without a doubt unrivaled. An absolute monstrosity that took the lives of its builders in the most devastating and brutal way imaginable. Hello everyone, welcome back to The Most Bizarre. If you are not subscribed yet, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and like the video, because what you're about to see will blow your mind. But enough talking, let's start with the video. For many years, human beings have aspired to conquer the heavens. There are many reasons why mankind's constructions have become taller and taller, among which are the advancement of population growth and more divine reasons, such as our ancestors seeking to get closer to God by creating buildings that would touch the heavens. Why would mankind want to build taller buildings? Before answering the first question that brought us to this video, we need to understand why architects are so interested in building taller and taller buildings. Besides the prestige that comes with being the designer of one of the tallest buildings on Earth, the construction of taller buildings is linked to a basic problem that all of humanity faces, which is the lack of space. Land is limited in size, which means that sooner or later, we will run out of places to build. That is why, faced with the lack of territory, most countries are turning away from looking at their sides to build towards the skies, where the space for construction seems to be infinite. However, there are some limitations when constructing a high-rise building, as there is always the risk of the building falling apart and crushing an entire city. On the other hand, there's the impact of wind at heights, since the higher a building is, the greater the force of the wind that hits it. What may seem like a pleasant breeze at ground level can feel like a storm at more than 500 meters above the ground. This is one of the biggest challenges architects face today, and the reason why we don't have buildings that exceed 1,000 meters. How tall are skyscrapers? Among the tallest constructions created by mankind are skyscrapers, which are high-rise buildings composed of a large number of floors. For reference, the average height of a skyscraper is usually a minimum of 150 meters, which is approximately 492 feet tall. These buildings, which have the size of a true giant, can reach more than 40 floors in its structure, making even the colossal titan of Shingeki no Kyojin look minuscule beside it. Nevertheless, there are even taller skyscrapers, among which are the super tall category, which exceed 300 meters, and the mega tall skyscrapers, which are over 600 meters high. What is the tallest building in the world? There are few buildings on the planet that can be as striking to the eye as the Burj Khalifa skyscraper, located in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. When it comes to size, this building, considered to be the tallest human structure on the planet, is without a doubt unrivaled. An absolute monstrosity that took the lives of its builders in the most devastating and brutal way imaginable. Its construction began on January 6, 2004, and was completed on January 4, 2010, when the skyscraper was inaugurated. This $1.5 billion project, which cost more money than many millionaires could raise as they partnered together, had serious consequences, including the death of its 11 workers, who suffered the worst last seconds a human could face when they fell from the top of the tower. The Burj Khalifa Tower project was linked to a great series of scandals, as the masons responsible for constructing it were not only underpaid, but were also subjected to extreme and inhumane conditions. So, let's think for a second if mankind would like to repeat the feat of constructing a building as tall as the Burj Khalifa, or even surpass it. First of all, we would need volunteers who are willing to work at heights of more than 800 meters, which I can assure you will not be too many. Even if we had workers eager to build one of the tallest buildings on Earth, they would need to be well prepared and trained, as the slightest mistake could result in their death. And finally, we have our old friend, the wind, which could claim the lives of many of these workers just as it did in the construction of the Burj Khalifa skyscraper, making this an extremely risky and unlikely undertaking. Could mankind build buildings taller than 1,000 meters? If a way could be found for workers to work on their construction safely and to cope with the great threat of wind, it would be possible for buildings taller than 1,000 meters to not only be a dream, but to become a reality. In fact, I am convinced that with our current technology, mankind could build buildings over 1,000 meters tall, and that within the first few decades, we will be able to contemplate one of the first buildings to achieve this feat. While there was a time when the Great Pyramid of Giza was considered the largest building on the planet, at 146 meters, today mankind aspires to build buildings 10 times taller, which speaks to our ingenuity and ability to overcome the challenges we face on a daily basis. However, if we do not want the Burj Khalifa tragedy to repeat itself, we need our safety measures at work to evolve in the same way that our understanding of physics has progressed. Since there is no point in inventing the most creative and fancy ways to make a coffee, if when we think of our masonry techniques, we believe that a guy with a helmet and a rope is safe hanging from a tower. Because it would be useless to start a 1,500-meter-high skyscraper if his workers will start dropping like flies before they can finish it. How high can you build in humanity? In theory, there is no limit to how high we humans can build, as long as we expand the size of the base of the buildings we plan to create so that it can support the weight of the top of the structure, making the phrase, "the sky is the limit," much more logical than we thought. However, it is important to remember that all construction needs to be financed, making the interest rates of loans a greater challenge than the laws of physics. What is the largest building mankind plans to build? Currently, there is a project that could make all human constructions created to date look like ants in comparison to their size. One of the biggest architectural challenges our species has ever set itself in its entire history, and that project is the Exceed 4000. The Exceed 4000 is a project that aspires to build a gigantic structure 4,000 meters high, with a base of 6 kilometers, which would be equivalent to about 3,700 miles wide. More than a skyscraper, it would be a giant artificial mountain that would have the capacity to house 1 million people. Unfortunately, the only thing that exists today of this building are its plans, since its ridiculously exorbitant price makes its construction unfeasible. Moreover, there is the problem of the internal air pressure to which its inhabitants would be subjected, and the variations in external air pressure, making this a project unlikely to happen. How could mankind build taller buildings? Although building mountains as immense as the Exceed 4000 may seem like a dream, the truth is that humanity has been able to do everything it has set out to do so far. So, there is always a glimmer of hope. From creating artificial islands to designing robots with the ability to recreate human emotions or have autonomy on their own, I don't think there is anything we are not capable of achieving. Because humans love a challenge. And the bigger the challenge, the more willing we are to overcome it. As for whether we will be able to see buildings bigger than the Burj Khalifa, I think with the advancement of robotics and drone technology, it is possible that one day buildings of 1,000 and 2,000 meters in height can be built without risking the life of a single human being. So, all that remains to be asked now is, do we really need taller buildings? Today, the answer seems to be that they are not needed in the near future, as we still have many small structures left to expand, but someday we may need them. Maybe that's a question our future grandchildren will be able to answer for us. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to see another one of our amazing videos, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be kept up to date with all the latest news. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.